Okay, so we are on another episode of Same Ocean, Different Beach. Here on this episode, I am graced with the lovely presence of my good friend Nikki. Nikki, how are you doing this evening?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely, I've been excited to do this.
Yeah, me too.
We've talked about it for a while, so Nikki, just start off by telling the listeners just like a little bit about yourself.
Me. Well, I'm 31. I moved to Hawaii almost 2 years ago.
Okay. So 2018, somewhere around there.
Yeah. I'm an electrician. I came to Hawaii a few years before. Actually, turned out it just came to visit, and I loved it so much that I knew the moment that I finished my program, my electrician program, I was gonna move here.
So did you, is that when you found out about Pahoa? Because I feel like everyone finds out about Pahoa either, randomly, stumble upon it. How did you figure out, to settle on this, not just this island, but, this side of the island, too?
Well, I went to Kahana, actually, the first time I went to the nude beach. I hit up a lot of the island, and I loved this area. For sure, I loved this area, this side, more than Kona side. But, but I didn't know where I was going to actually live at first. I ended up on Hamakua Coast, which, to tell you the truth, I kind of want to go back to. I do love it here in Pahoa, but Hamakua has my heart.
No, Hamakua is really beautiful. We've done a couple, just day trips up there, and it's just a really just gorgeous,
We should do that sometime.
area.
Actually.
I'm definitely down. So you started up Hamakua area. What did you just come here and then start looking for work? Or?
It was kind of funny. I kind of had a. I guess I can get as personal as I want with this, but
Absolutely.
Yeah, when I graduated from my program, I was very aimless. It was like all my friends from back home were starting families and married and kids, and and I partied a lot through my 20s. But I also worked really hard to become an electrician. So I just kind of wasn't sure what to do. I graduated from this program and just kind of felt aimless. Well, okay, what now? I just work as an electrician now. And I got laid off shortly after that period too, which is really common when you turn out. A lot of times you get laid off and then you take your first call as a journeyman. I was scared to death to do that. Because I was just like, oh my god, I'm supposedly know everything now. That's what my license says. And I just went into really bad depression. Drank a lot. It's actually when I met my friend Nico. And he was just this adorable gay man with all these friends. And I partied a lot with him for about 6 months. And, I'm just kind of aimless and not knowing what I was going to do. And then my depression got so bad. I ended up getting diagnosed with bipolar disorder and was just not having any of it and just so unhappy that I just decided to leave everyone and move out here. Came out here by myself.
It's a tough call to make. I've had a lot of friends that gone through different levels through different things of sobriety, and they say one of the hardest things is I knew one guy that told me that if he ever got put in jail, the second he got out of jail, somehow, some way, the old people that he used to hang out with were able to get a hold of him. And so it's just one of those things where obviously you weren't in that situation, but you really have to sever all those ties with all those friends in order to...
Yeah, and lucky for me, a lot of the people that I'm really close to, the ones that really, really matter, weren't going down a druggy path. As I say, they were starting families and I wasn't doing that with them.
Oh, okay.
So I still partied with them, but it was kind of more normal, So it just was getting really bad towards the end. I wasn't even hanging out with
your other friends
the people.
anymore.
Yeah,
your main friends.
I wasn't even, because when they saw me, they knew me so well. I couldn't do anything but just cry when I would hang out with them. So I was just super unhappy. So I just like booked it and came here. Ended up on a goat farm, and kind of just put myself through rehab for about 6 months before I left the goat farm. And then Nico actually ended up coming out here around the time I was about to leave the goat farm, and he worked on the goat farm for a few months. And I started working as an electrician again, which is great because, you know, it's what I'm supposed to be doing. It's what my job is. And it's like, you know, the best way for me to make money. And I just need to feel confident in that. And the only way to do that is by just doing it.
Yeah.
So, then we ended up leaving the goat farm, and we lived in a tent in our friend's backyard for about a month. Which was fun.
I've heard stories of that.
Yeah. And then we got a 1-bedroom studio, pretty much just tiny little apartment. And it was the 3 of us, me, Nico, and Ashley. Mm-hmm. And that was interesting for 6 months. But it was really cheap rent, and we were able to save up a lot. And I worked my butt off. I just worked straight for like 6 months straight. Like 10-hour days, stupid, come aside, travel.
Dang.
Yeah, that's all I did. So then when I finally stopped working come December, I went home finally for the first time in like, it was funny, I was supposed to go home after 3 months of being here.
Oh, really?
And then,
that was the plan?
Yeah, that was the plan. Yeah, I wasn't going to move here. I didn't expect to.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Oh.
But I just couldn't leave. I was just doing so much better here. Actually, it's been almost 2 years since the last time I drank alcohol.
It's very good.
Yeah.
Very good.
Really, I think that's kind of been a huge game changer for me.
Well, hanging out with you guys has definitely stopped me. Don't get me wrong. When you're like, oh, there you go. When I first got to the island, I was definitely drinking a lot more than I should have, and it's funny because I tell you guys the amount, and you guys just laugh at me because it was you know, it's just like baby numbers. But no, I mean, really, since me and you guys, I don't even buy alcohol anymore. It saves you a lot of money. It saves you a lot of money. It's just also one of those things where, like, if you just have enough people hanging out with you that don't do it, there's just no reason to.
I'm so happy that, like, I had the solid foundation of having quit when Rona hit. Because, like, with this whole Corona and all this stuff, like...
A lot of people have been relapsing, yeah. A lot of people.
And I get it. There's so much stress involved right now with everything. And I love that I was able to even quit, like, nicotine and everything like that. Which was super hard. I knew it would be. I've quit nicotine before, but... Once you're past it, you're so free. You just feel so free.
You don't have those things holding you.
No, and of course you're going to have those little nagging... things, little bits of this and that, but you just feel so free.
And the best thing, which I think you and Nico both, and I think Ryan and James as well, which is trying to replace that habit with trying not to replace that habit, I think, with one sole habit, which that then becomes your main focus and purpose. Mm-hmm. Like, I've known people that quit smoking tobacco and then all they do is run. And I'm like, hey, bro, you're actually just, like, hurting your body just as much, if not more, running, like, 5 miles every day than smoking a pack a week, you know, because of the compression on your knees and whatnot. But at least over time.
There's certain ways to run properly that
yeah.
Have you ever heard, I don't know if there's, like, a special way...
It's you land on the balls of your
you're supposed to, like, kind of be falling forward.
How humans are designed to walk is you put all the pressure on the ball of your on the ball of your foot, on the front of your foot, and then you come down on your heel. But interesting enough, back when Nike came out with the big shoes in the 70s with the thick cushion, that started changing how people actually ran, and that's when you started getting all of these knee problems, these leg problems and stuff like that, all because they said, oh, cushion in the back, that's why I want to land, to have the most, you know, when really, like, atomically structure-wise, you're supposed to, like, come down on the heel and then go down.
I've
and
heard
then
that.
Yeah.
There's, like, a special way of running that you can learn.
Versus going
that
heel toe.
Yeah, it's like a kind of a falling forward type motion.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. My mom
But
took it.
it's also not something that, like, helps you win the Olympics or anything. Because technically it's faster to go heel-toe than toe-heel. You know? But
for working out purposes, though.
For working out purposes, you could, yeah, definitely. I mean, at least try running like that. But I just think it's cool that you guys have found, like, a bunch of little different things that you guys can spend time doing versus being, like, swapping out. Because I feel like that's what people a lot of times do. Like, you know, like, a lot of people that will, which I think is better, you know, you're quitting, like, the harder stuff and then you switch to tobacco, which is good because you're quitting the harder stuff and moving tobacco, but you're also just replacing one habit.
I never switched. You know. Tobacco was always there.
But, like, if people do, like, Coke or, you know,
thank
something
God
like
I'm allergic to that.
Oh, well, there you go. That's a good way to stay away from it.
Yeah. No, I've never really had issues with hard drugs. But I guess that's common with people that are bipolar. Is because you go through manic and depressive states. Since that's changing so much, you don't really stick with, like, any one thing for too long.
I could see that.
And anyway, I read it in a book. But it is common for them to be alcoholics or like potheads. Those two drugs are...
That makes sense to try and find an equilibrium within the ups and downs.
The ups and downs,
That makes sense.
But, I don't know. Drugs, I mean... I don't know. I feel like I'm just entering a new chapter now. Like, if I'm just trying to rediscover who I am, what I do like, and being more forgiving. I've always been really hard on myself.
That's a hard thing. That's a tough internal battle to constantly struggle with. Is not only, you know, I almost find it easier to forgive other people than I do myself for the things I do. Like, it's just like, oh, that person did that. No big deal. It's like, oh, but you said this thing that someone misinterpreted 10 years ago. Okay, well, that's going to keep you up for 4 hours in the middle of the night.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
no, for sure.
You know, I was actually just having that conversation with Nico, and, you know.
How do you become kinder to yourself?
I like to think that that's almost one of the reasons why we're here on the planet, is to figure that out. Is just how, because in ways, if someone finds out how to be kinder to yourself, then theoretically it becomes really easy to be kinder to others.
Maybe it's the same thing. Maybe your kindness to others isn't necessarily real until you are kind to yourself as well. Because your kindness in others is just trying to get, like, their approval. Thus, you know, it's like a selfish thing.
That's a good point. You can almost look at it how people say, like, you know, you can't love someone else until you love yourself, kind of thing. Mm-hmm. So kind of like going along that same mentality where, you know,
it's hard because when you think people don't like you, there's something that it just, like, it fucks you up.
Yeah.
Ruins my day. Like, just bad. Like, it's a big old bummer. I've dealt with that. You know, I've always had issues with that. I've always known that, like, if I could just not care or worry about what people thought about me and just live me and truly just be... And it's getting easier the older I get. But it's, you know, it's something I think I'm really supposed to figure out right now.
No, definitely. I think a lot of people should be using the time that, you know, whether people want to view the quarantine that I guess for us is no longer going on, but is going on in some other places.
So bad. Still back at home. God, the whole United States is just a shit.
And they're all reopening up, and it's just gotta get.
I don't even know.
It's gonna get cyclical.
Crazy.
But and I think that's what people should be doing. Is exactly what you're saying. Is learning how to go within yourself and look at the parts of you that...
Well, it's like this whole thing with the whole Black Lives Matter movement. Is I do completely agree with the movement and feel guilty that I'm not doing more. Like, I should be doing more. Well, but I've been nervous before to stand up in times where I've seen people being racist or just whatever situation... You know, like, even online, like, because I just don't want to be a part of an argument or have someone's negativity directed at me, so I'll just skirt it and duck away, and it's like I feel shame for that.
Well, I don't know if it's if you should feel shame, because I like to think that, you know, like.
But if you see an injustice, you
True.
should call it out.
True, and I agree with that. But if you take this back to almost kind of like when we were tribes, right? Like we had certain roles in whatever community that we were in, right? There were healers, there were warriors, there were gatherers, there were this, there were that. So I like to think that that still goes true to this day, where, you know, like, I know that if I see an injustice and if I don't want to call it out, maybe I'll decide to, I don't know, tag someone that is a warrior, that I know is a warrior, that does know how to call people out correctly, or this or that, you know what I mean? I've done that on Facebook a couple times, where I'm like, hey, yo, check out what this person's saying. That person's just like, wha bam, and just hits them real hard, you know?
Yeah, I had some people like that I would do for,
you know.
I think a huge part of it is there's a fear of that negative energy coming at me.
Yeah.
And if I just were to chalk it up to, like, fuck it, I don't care. Because I know what's right, and at least, like, say it, state your facts, whatever, people can come at you. I mean, if it just starts getting ridiculous, just stop, because give up. But I need to be a little bit more, I don't know, I feel like it's like a truth thing inside me.
I feel like the best way to do that is by trying to educate people, like, face to face. Like, for instance, like, I had a coworker that said, you know, well, to me, like, I don't know, I kind of think all lives matter. And I was like, you know what, bro? Like, I understand your perspective, I do, because, you know, back when I was younger, I was really on, like, social media and stuff, and when the Black Lives Matter first started, I saw a lot of people saying, like, only Black Lives Matter and this and that. And instead of thinking, like, oh, maybe that's just some people that misrepresent the group, you know what I mean? I didn't think that way. And now, since I've reversed that thinking, but I educate them. I said, hey, man, I agree with you in that, but we have people that really need our help, and all lives can't matter until Black Lives Matter. Yeah. So, you know, we kind of need to help put this house that's on fucking fire right now.
Yeah.
And that's where... And, you know, I don't know if I changed his perspective or not, but it seemed like I did kind of at the end of the day. And that's where I think that the discourse and the discussion, and I think that that's where it should be presented, is terms of, there's no sense in fighting with someone on the internet. If someone says something racist on the internet, man, I see it all the time, and unfortunately, it's every now and then I'll say something. But most of the time, I just let it go, because there's no. Now, if someone in person says something racist, then that's when I'll step in and be like, "Hey, man, you need to be educated on what you're saying."
Yeah.
You know, because you can actually do something about it in person, face to face. I used to have a friend in high school that would troll me throughout all of college on our online Discord. Dude doesn't, and then we'd meet in frickin', like, out to dinner, and he wouldn't say anything to me. We you know, he wouldn't, you know, because he didn't have a computer screen to hide behind. Yeah, and I feel like that's 95. Yeah, exactly. It's like, I remember I saw this guy arguing with Todd on Facebook one time, and Todd was throwing out stats and this and that, and it was something about Black Lives Matter, and I just tagged Todd in a comment saying, you know, Todd, it's really unfortunate when you can't educate the people who choose to be ignorant, and this is just a good example of that. And then the guy went off on me, and instead of replying to it, I was just like...
It gets exhausting.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know, I've been actually thinking about... I kind of have totally backed off social media, and I was doing it before all this. Anyway, I started doing it a while ago, actually. I don't even know. I just kind of... Pretty much when I moved here. It was funny, a lot of people didn't even know I moved to Hawaii.
Oh, really?
For a long time, yeah, because I never posted anything. And I guess I just kind of had to... Being on the goat farm was good, too, because there was no internet, really. So I was just, like, disconnected from
Well, you were also coming here for that purpose, too.
That was true,
You're also coming here to disconnect, to cut off that old life of doing whatever it was.
I do feel like there's a part of me that needs to go back, though, at some point, as a changed person, to do something beneficial. Like, I feel like sometimes I'm hiding. Like, I'm hiding here. I it's like, was scary there, and it was bad, and I, fell into bad habits, and I, was so unhappy, and it was so, you know what I mean.
Yeah.
The mainland.
No, I feel you.
It's that.
Yeah.
Kind of sucks your soul. I went back just recently, too, for a few months, for around Christmas, and it just, I was so unhappy. And I don't know, seasonal depression's a thing too, though. And it was rainy and crappy the whole time, cold.
Well, it also could be too. Like I know, like for me, like when I would change groups and stuff throughout college and stuff, like I would get like depressed because like there would be times where like I used to be able to hang out with all these people, and then a group change would happen or something would happen with the next or something, and then I'd lose some friends, and then it would just be like there'd be nothing left to do. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't going out to the bars, I wasn't going to clubs, I wasn't.
Yeah.
You know, doing any of that stuff. I at least I know for me, like I would hit that seasonal depression even in Southern California like that, just being like, okay, now I have nothing to do.
I guess it's just so green here too. It's just so sunny and nice, like, and it just doesn't feel. It's. I bet if I went to Oahu and was living there, I would probably. I don't know how to compare other islands really.
Yeah, it's hard to compare where you haven't been,
love
right?
This like slower, how much slower it is out here. How like disconnected from that rat race.
Yes.
Of everything.
I agree with you. Yeah, absolutely. I completely, and that's what I think it is when the mainland. Like earlier when you said like, you know, just like the mainland.
Yeah.
Like that, the rat race is exactly what that is. It's how can I get ahead? And you meet some people on Big Island. Like I know a couple people that I've met here that used to be my friend and whatnot, and since I've seen who they kind of were, but and they also kind of have that habit, you know what I mean, where it's like, okay, how can I get $5 out of this guy, kind of thing, or you know what I mean, like kind of that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
Where people still have that.
I tend not to be friends with people like that.
I said the second I found out who that guy was, and same thing. Yeah. But no, no, I completely agree with you. But yeah, I feel like that rat race is a really good term for that. It's like, how can I screw over this rat to get that nugget of cheese over there? You know?
Or it's just like there's so many things that I feel, and I still have to struggle with that even here, that I'm supposed to be doing all the time that I just can't even breathe. Like sometimes I'll sit down to meditate, and I try to meditate every day, and there's some days that are better than others, but I literally can just not turn my brain off. Like, it is just constantly being hit from all sides of just shit that I'm supposed to do, and this and that, it just flows in. I've been more easier on myself lately with the meditation of, like, it's okay. You know, and the moment I tell myself, it's okay, these thoughts are coming, you recognizing it, breathe, let it go. That's part of meditation. Yeah. It's not, you don't have to be perfect and have a completely blank, clear, mystical brain, you know.
Yeah.
Awesome. I think being for part of loving yourself and forgiving yourself is being okay with, like, just your humanness.
Yeah.
And it's something I've been working on.
Well, and it's also hard because, you know, society, well, actually, before I get into that, I almost laugh at myself when that happens when I meditate. Like, like when thoughts come in my head, like I'll have like this thought of like, oh, silly Ryan, you're thinking again. Like, and that's why, like, instead of, I used to just try and like empty my mind, and I realized I do have to focus on something. So now what I tend to focus on, and obviously it's, if you read any meditation book, they tell you this right at the beginning, so it's stupid that I'm like, oh, live for the moment. Yeah, it's just your breath. And then so once I started doing that more, I was kind of able to like,
you know what fun
hone in that one thought
that I've been doing. I've been doing it since I was a kid, and I didn't even realize. But that lava lamp that's behind your eyes, your eyelids, and you see all those shapes and things. Focusing on that, I love it. I get really, really into it.
I agree.
Sometimes you'll just see amazing images too, and of course, when you focus on it, they disappear.
Yeah.
But it's that's been something I really have been enjoying a lot.
It's okay, bud. It's okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mom.
He'll be back soon. For anyone listening, Leandro is not here. He is doing Sweat with Nico, which is wonderful. I'm happy for both of them, but babysitting Mox doesn't like when Daddy's away. So, you might hear him cry out a couple times, but he's doing good. Got a little sunburn on his nose. No, yeah, and I feel like part of the other side that I want to talk about is I think the other part of like being okay with your faults as a human, that goes back to like, and depending on how parents raised an individual, I guess it could go back to that. For me personally, I like to think it's more society. And it's not even like a schooling system, but people forget about all the other little... I want to call them like Inceptions almost. Like from the movie where like an idea is planted in your head of like, oh, I have a gut. I got to get rid of this gut because this is unattractive and no woman's going to find me attractive if I have this gut. I need to be like super lean, six-pack guy. You know what I mean?
That's not how it works.
No one told me that in school. My mom definitely never fucking told me that, but it's these little Inception things. And it's especially hard, I can only imagine, for a woman because you have twice, if not 4 times, the amount of Inceptions as men do, and I can't even imagine what it's like for people in minorities because it's 48 times that. You know, it's these little tiny. God damn it, buzzer. Okay, well, it's gonna buzz. But it's these little tiny Inceptions that I think really make it hard for us to be like, and it just goes with whoever you are. Where just like, oh, if you're too white, you're not gonna tan, and then you're gonna be kind of an unpasty color, and you know, people that want that, you want to be like a nice golden tan. You know what I mean? Like all these little tiny things that hack away at your self-esteem. So when you look at yourself and you go, oh wow, I'm not as tan as some other people. Wow, maybe, you know what I mean?
Right.
I feel like that's another big part of that, and then also that can get strongly influenced depending on how you're raised. You know, I mean,
so many things.
Me and Todd were talking about that in a previous podcast, where it's just one of those things where you got to be real careful with, you know, just what you even say to your kids, man. Like I remember my mom made a good job to never say that I was a dumb kid. My actions were dumb. Things I did were really dumb. But I, as a person, as a Ryan Collins, was never dumb.
Yeah, my parents did a really good job raising
No,
me.
definitely. I see that too.
They very encouraging. It's funny, you're talking about Uncle Todd.
Uncle Todd.
I was saying something about what my parents used to tell me when I was young, and he was just like, I love that, that's good, or something. But just remember that, like, you're not better than anyone else, but no one is better than you. And that was really pushed on me as a kid.
Yeah.
My mom would always tell me, she's like, nobody is better than you, but you're not better than anyone else.
Yeah.
And just
try your hardest that you can do at the end of the day.
But don't ever think you're better than anyone.
Yeah.
You don't have the right to be here more than anybody else, but no one has the right to be there more than you.
Yeah. It's a really humbling thing to learn at a young age. I like that.
Oh, I
really like that. I mean, obviously, of course, like most lessons our parents teach us, it doesn't sink into like we're in our mid-20s and shit.
It's funny. I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I don't even know. But I don't know, ever since, honestly, the last 2 years of my life have been so interesting. I feel like I was in the fog of alcohol all through my 20s. And it's funny, when I went to therapy, he pretty much told me that, like, after a night of binge drinking, your brain chemistry is off for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much binge drinked a lot. Like, it was like at least every weekend, if not once a month, you know? So, like, I wasn't giving myself a fighting chance.
Well, not only that, but, I mean, definitely, and it also all depends on, like, you know, when you start. Like, my dad, for example, my dad never matured past the age of 16. Because he started drinking heavily when he was 16.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that's the other thing, too, and I think you find this a lot when, I think pot smokers find this a lot when they quit, and definitely people that do, you know, hard drugs and alcohol, is they start seeing all the shit, like, they're like, fuck, why am I remembering this fucked up thing, like, this crazy fucked up thing from, like, when I was 7? And they don't realize, oh, I've been repressing that through.
It's been happening to Nico more and more.
You know, and it's and that's when you need therapy the most. Is when you're having those moments, because therapy is great when you do it within yourself, but there are some things that it's kind of like, I don't know if you've ever had this happen, but you have a friend point out that your other friend chews really loudly, and you've never noticed it until
Yeah.
until your friend pointed it out, and then now that your friend pointed out, you can't not notice it. I think it's the same thing with ourselves. I think we like to cover up some of the things that maybe we don't recognize within ourselves, or this or that, and talking about those things with another person can really help see a different perspective that maybe we're not seeing because we're only seeing it from our view lens and our reality. You know, if you have a good therapist. I mean, there's a lot of, you know, ifs in that statement. But if you have a good therapist, I know I had one when I was a kid, and that's what he did a lot. He'd be like, okay, well, that's your perspective. He's like, but let's, for fun, think of it from, say, the other person's perspective and how they may look at the situation. And, you know, that really taught me dualism in all things, you know, that there's always two sides of everything, and that even if this person is, you know, if you want to look at it in terms of like a legal thing or right and wrong, even if this person's 95% in the one way or the other, this person still has 5% over here, you know.
There's a lot to be said for a good therapist.
A lot.
And to like figuring out that those kind of things about yourself is one part of the puzzle, but then after you figure it out, after you learn, it's about identifying with it, because sometimes you cling on to these images that you have of yourself, even if they're bad, and you like it like becomes a part of you. It's a part of your ego. It's so in there that it's like hard to like let it go, because if you let it go, then what's left?
Yeah,
almost.
Yeah.
And that's something I've been really tackling for the last 2 years, because there's just so much, especially my self-negative talk and certain things. It's funny, is I never really believed in manifestation, the whole secret thing. For forever, I kind of thought, I mean, I knew it worked for people, but I never thought it could work for me, because I felt like I understood the secret of the secret, if that made sense. Where it's like, of course, if you're going to be positive in whatever thing that you're doing, or if you're going to put this energy into whatever this thing is, your outcome is that much greater, that like this thing's going to happen because you're putting that variable there. It's math. Like, if you never do it, it's never going to happen.
Yeah.
So, but the problem is my pessimistic nature in my mind was like, but it's also math, that even though you do all the things, it doesn't mean it's going to happen. Because life, math, all the other variables.
Yeah. Well, we were talking about earlier. You asked me how old my mom was when she was sick.
Mm-hmm.
My mom did everything. She did an ROC banking class at her high school. Graduated, did a whole career in banking, moved her way up, got to positions where she needed like a 4-year degree, and she only had a high school degree. Did everything for that variable of setting up, and then got disabled at 44, and that's an unknown variable that she did not account for in the equation.
And that's always like that. That's just
life.
Oh,
absolutely.
That's how it works. But
you get $50 and then your tire pops.
You gotta give yourself that fighting chance. And I really realized, which was beautiful, is that with words, there's a lot of power. And when I moved to Hawaii, I didn't really... If you would have asked me a few years ago, if you would have told me, like, hey, you're going to quit drinking in a few years and you're never going to have another sip of alcohol again, I would have not believed you. I would have been in full-bore panic, like, scared to death of the idea of giving up alcohol. Because
that's where your identity was.
Yeah, it was a huge part of that.
Wrapped up in it.
And it was just, like, not an option.
Yeah.
But it was funny, because every time I ever met anybody that went sober, that did that, I would get scared. If they told me that, like, yeah, I've been sober now for 6 months, or there was like this weird, crazy feeling in my gut, like this, like, scared. I didn't really realize what it was at the time, but it was like I knew. It was like, I guess I've been calling it my truth, and in this feeling, and it's like I knew that, like, what they were doing, what was happening there was true for me, and I was scared of it, like going against it.
Yeah. And
that's why I had the feeling. I don't have that feeling anymore when it comes to that. But what I do have that feeling with now, and it still kind of scares the crap out of me, is whenever I watch the Tiananmen riots from in China, I think 1998 or 89, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
That tank man.
Yeah.
The man that just stands in front of the tanks, just drops his grocery bags down, and just, yeah. I've been thinking about that a lot lately, and like whenever I watch that video or see that image, I get that same feeling that I used to get when I would think about quitting alcohol. And I think it's because I know what I'm seeing there, witnessing, is truth.
Well,
again.
Yeah.
But like, I'm scared to stand in front of a tank.
Well, I mean...
Does that make sense? Like, I was scared to quit drinking alcohol. Now I'm scared. I'm looking at that thinking, is this the next step? Is this the next thing I'm supposed to do? I have to
I gotta now step in front of a fucking tank?
Yeah, like, this is what my next calling is? Or something. It's like I'm scared.
Your own tank. It doesn't have to be an actual physical tank. It could just be...
that was the most true thing I've ever seen so far in my life. I can't even... He did that with just the purest of, like... I mean, obviously, probably dead. Like... But he didn't care in that moment. It wasn't about his life.
Did you see the monk? Have you seen the video of the monk setting himself on fire with gasoline? And also, I think China, somewhere around that.
I've never seen it, but I know about it.
The only reason why I know that is because of Rage. I think it's Rage Against the Machine. That's one of their album covers.
Well, that's like right up there with that. But at the same time, I think for some reason the tank guy is more powerful because he wasn't knowing in that moment. I don't think that he was going to die. I think he like knew it was definitely probably an option, but it was just, I don't know, there's something so beautiful about it.
Well, it's also very
just
the image itself is really symbolic to so many things that people can put it to. I mean, just like I said, like, you may not have to stand in front of a physical tank, but just, like, your own version of that, you know what I mean?
Like, catching yourself on fire, I mean, I understand and I get why.
It's a different thing.
But to me, it's, like,
it's also self-inflicted.
Like, extra, yeah, right?
Sorry, not trying to laugh at someone setting himself on fire, but it's different than being run over by a tank. It's that's self-inflicted.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, that person didn't have to set themselves on fire.
I feel like there's other things that you could do, and that's where I'm at, I guess. Is I need to figure out what it is that I can do that satisfies that pit feeling in my stomach of whatever this truth thing is, and I'm getting there. I'm getting closer to it. I'm not hiding as much as I used to, or like sulking in the shadows of my shame and guilt of, my booze of whatever.
Feel you on that one, minus the booze.
I'm still kind of hiding here in Hawaii right now, but
yeah, I feel you on that one. I don't know, it's interesting that you were talking about, like, the whole identity thing, because I really went through that when I started smoking weed when I was 18, because I'm an Eagle Scout, and my whole identity was wrapped up. I mean, it's like almost 8 years of your life that you're in Boy Scouts, you know what I mean? So it's a big part of it, if you don't do Cub Scouts, that is, and I didn't really do Cub Scouts, but I remember, like, really, like, almost having panic attacks, and it wasn't even because of the weed, it was just, like, me being like, can I even be doing this right now? Is this something I should be doing right now? Like, Boy Scouts aren't supposed to smoke weed, like this and that, like, and all these fucking thoughts. And no, that's exactly what it is. And I think right then it really taught me, like without even knowing it, but reflecting back on it now, like really taught me, like, well, that's okay. Like, people do a bunch of different things. Like, that's what it is to be human. If this is something I want to do, I'm not going to not do it because of some label that I'm a Boy Scout, but I didn't agree to sign up to be a label of, the poster child of a Boy Scout. You know what I mean? I'm just Ryan, Yeah. And then, you go into further of, well, Ryan doesn't really exist and all that nonsense and oneness, if you will. But I really am, empathize with you on that level. I've been through that struggle, and it really got me to the point where, like, now I really like that, since I know that exists, I'm not one of these people that gets wrapped up in like their political identities or like their like I know a lot of people that are activists, and I'm really glad they're activists, but that's their whole identity. Their whole world is wrapped up about them being an activist. And my next question that happens is, what happens when that goal is met, and it's a wonderful thing that goal is met, but then what do you do with your life now at this point?
Well, that's the whole thing.
You know, like your identity is now dead because you've reached this apex of this political movement, and now that has like, for instance, like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot more to do with LGBTQ rights, but like all the people, like I'm sure a lot of people went through it when they were activists for gay marriage. Like that was their whole thing up until 2008. And I'm sure a lot of them were like, well, fuck, now what do I do? Like, that was my whole idea, my whole, thing was wrapped around it, I don't know, but that's just how I think of it, Like, it's an ego death without doing the DMT.
There's certain things I think that you would be good to let go of if you can get past it. That people have this, at least for me, like this. It's like a secret thing that you don't even realize until you have those triggers and you have those flare-ups, And like Nico kind of called me out on it recently with the sad girl thing. Something I was listening to some song, and he was just like, this song is like such a. I see you in so many ways of. There's like this, you identify with this thing. He's like, it's almost like, I almost hate the whole, not hate it, he's like, I get that it works for some people, but the whole Alcohol Anonymous thing, he's like, you go to a meeting and you say, hello, I'm so-and-so and I'm an alcoholic. He's like, you're still identifying with that thing. You're like saying that you're this thing, and then it's like, it has you trapped. And I told him, I was like, well, whatever works for people.
Yeah.
But I do kind of hear him. And it is scary to let go of even those things that are, like, painful and you're hurting yourself. It's gotten so wrapped up in, like, you're attached to that pain still.
Yeah.
And I know I sound like almost like an Eckhart Tolle whole pain body thing, but there's a lot to be said for that book.
Mm-hmm.
The Power of Now and that whole situation. Every time I do, and it's one of those things you kind of read multiple times. It's a good reminder, and to actually act on a lot of that stuff. It's so hard, though, like, because you get pulled back into it.
It's a systematic way of retraining your brain.
Yeah.
Like
recreating those synapses, probably.
I saw personal growth with it literally today. Remember that jade piece that I was looking for yesterday? Leandro found it by the couch.
Nice.
And he just randomly found it. He's like, hey, there's a jade piece. I'm like, oh. I'm like, well, honestly, I'm really proud of myself for the way I responded to it. Because I was very just like, it takes what it wants, non-attachment kind of thing. And that piece is actually like, I caught myself as I was doing it. I'm like, what the fuck am I saying? That piece is really precious to me. I got that in Big Sur. I've literally worn that.
Yeah.
But then I remember just internally just being like, it's okay. It is what it's going to be.
It's really good.
If it turns out, it turns up. And that's something I've definitely I've worked on my entire life, because that, like, even 2 years ago, that's not something I would do. I mean, I was famous for, my mom could always tell when I was looking for something, because my room was torn the fuck up, man. Like, bed flipped over, like, I was looking for it. And so for me to just, like, look in a couple places that I thought it would be, and then just be like, if it's in the house, it's in the house. If I lost it at Gehenna one day, not realizing, or on a hike, that's okay too.
Right?
And
there's so many things that people attach to their childhood too, like
or just
memories,
sentimental value,
sentimental, and it's like you can't hold on to anything.
Oh yeah, I remember.
Hold on to yourself. You're gonna die.
Well, that tin box I had that had the Nako quote and everything. Someone took it from Lahikiola, and I was just like, well, people looked for it, Like, I mean, we had almost the whole bar searching because people were nice enough to look for it. But I was just like, well, if it pops up, I can be like, hey, that's mine. And if not, then someone from the INA needed it more than I did, I guess.
Yeah. Nico recently, it was this love letter kind of thing that I wrote to somebody a long time ago. And I still had it on my phone. And him, with an ex of his, too, he had this whole thing. And we recently both did. That's funny. Right when I was saying all that, I looked down and it was just 44444. Of course. But we both deleted all of it. All of the stuff. And it was really hard. In that moment, and I went back to do it multiple times that day, and, like, for some reason couldn't do it, whatever the reason, and, like, did it, and it's been days, weeks since I did that, and I feel good.
Yeah.
Like, this huge release gone, like, this thing, and it's, like, weird, because you hold on to it, because there's a part of you that, like, for some reason that you embody that pain, even though it hurts. It's like the memories, and it's like this person, and I don't even know. It's like this whole thing wrapped up in it. And
I think it's also depending on how you look at it.
Yeah.
Like today, don't get me wrong, like I had some pain from it, but like I thought about my ex.
Mm-hmm.
Like we were talking about something at work, and like the baker apparently married his wife within like months of dating. Like just got engaged, 6 months engagement, like literally
that's what my
within a
parents
year.
did.
Yeah, and I just thought it was cool. And you know, I was saying it's funny how, like, you know, it was like, is it just one of those moments like when you know, you know? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, it's funny, I thought I had that with my ex, and I'm actually glad it didn't turn out that way. But it got me thinking about, you know, just how she made me feel when I was with her and stuff like that. And I didn't feel pain for it. I felt the love that she had, where I was like, wow, this is someone that literally saw all the horrible parts of my body, all the nastiness, all the horrible parts of me, this and that, and still really loved me for who I was, and through different things we couldn't make it work. But it's just really interesting too, because instead of identifying with the pain, I identified with
The good
with the
parts.
love, you know. And I think that's when you can get to, not saying there's any levels to it, but like for me, like when it gets to that level of like I recognize more with the love than the pain, then that just means that A, it was good. It's a good relationship, healthy relationship. But B, just kind of like, I don't know, man. I'm pessimistic sometimes, but I'm also the most horrible optimistic person in the entire fucking world. Like, I will find a silver lining in the darkest cloud storm. Like, even with Nico, I told Nico, I'm like, hey Nico, you know, I'm really sorry your mom got COVID, but got you to quit smoking cigarettes.
Yeah, it did.
And you know, like, you know, I obviously waited a good amount of time to say that, but it was one of those things where, like, even in this horrible dark cloud of horrible uncertainty, you still have this tiny, itty bitty silver lining within it, you know? And
so funny, you have so much power over your life, even though people think they don't. You do.
Oh, because your life is based on perspective, and your perspective is the one and only thing that you can change. And I firmly believe that.
A variable yourself in the mathematical equation of whatever all this is. And the fact that you have, if you want to call it free will or whatever, that you get to change that variable. You get to make it X, Y, Z, whatever. Put it in the equation and make that be whatever. And there's other variables, and they get to do their thing too, and that means that it's going to be whatever it's going to end up being. But you still have that power over your XYZ.
Yep.
You still can make it whatever you want it to be, and that
if you have a plus
so
here and a plus here before your integer, which is 2x, and your x, as long as you don't make x 0, you will always have a positive number at the end of that. Because guess what? If this is negative 500, then you just be 500. And then now you're 1,000, and that negative 500, no, but what you said, like, that's all it is. You know, like, if you see someone, I saw a beautiful thing at Kahana Sunday before you guys showed up. This huge wave came up and swashed everyone's stuff. I actually met a guy that his 20s got wet, and he paid for it at the Tin Shack today from Kahana yesterday.
Oh shit, he got his wallet back though.
Yeah. And this guy lost everything. Like, just bought a bunch of food, bread, all this stuff in his bag. And he had some negative energy about him. And this one random chick came up and just started rubbing his back, talking to him, doing some healing work, this and that, you know what I mean? And it was one of those things also where you can influence other variables, because I remember, like, Nico walked by, or he walked by Nico, and Nico was like, whoa, that guy's got some serious energy about him. And I was like, yeah, he had I explained his day, and he's like, oh, wow, you know, and then Nico ended up I like to think, increasing his variable with that guy and then putting more positive energy out.
towards him.
Yeah, exactly, you know. And so it's really interesting how
compassion his way.
you can be that very, you know, it's like, I don't know if you've seen that emoji on Facebook when you were, you know, scrolling through Facebook, but it's like that happy sun full of like all these angry faces.
Yeah,
and it starts to glow and hug and it's a total truth. And you know, if you want to bring it back to math, it goes back to your things. You know, different variables can have influences on other variables.
Yeah, it's true. It's all part of the system. I know there's a lot of chaos in there, but there's a little bit of comfort knowing that you at least can make decisions and actions, and you know, I didn't really ever believe in manifestation that much until I moved here. And
also the way that The Secret does it is a bunch of pile of bullshit.
It is. It really is stupid.
Because they don't go
focus on money and houses.
Not even that, but they focus just on manifestation. And I'm sorry, but it's kind of like, I never understood the people that would be like, "Dear God, I want a bike," or this or that, but they don't do anything to initiate. You have to put manifestation, and then you have to put action with the manifestation in it.
Yeah.
You know?
It's funny, though. It's like when I came out here, and I didn't know I was going to quit drinking. Mm-hmm. I didn't actually have that plan. I came out here just confused and scared and sad, and having recently been diagnosed bipolar, on medication, alone, on a goat farm with a nice lady, but I didn't know her very well. You know, I didn't know what the hell I was doing. No internet, pretty much. Just like, okay. It was a very humbling experience, you know. And I was 29, and my 30th birthday was a few weeks coming up. And one of the aunties on the farm had told me that something because they're Chinese, and she was saying that something that they do is they like to put intention. Whatever they do on their birthday, they try to do for the entire year. They like to make it like this thing. So if you want to like bring sewing into your life and like, or different skills, you practice that thing on your birthday.
Interesting.
And then that intention goes into that. And pretty much in that moment, I decided, I'm like, well, if I can like, because I hadn't drank yet. Mm-hmm. And I wasn't sure if I was going to have a drink on my 30th birthday to celebrate my 30th birthday, you know, big 3-0. Maybe have a glass of wine. I knew I wanted to cut back on alcohol, but I wasn't really sure because I didn't think I could quit it. But in that moment, I decided, I was like, if I can go like my whole 30th birthday without drinking, like I could go the entire year. And I did that. And it was funny, as everybody I kept meeting, I didn't really realize, but I just kept telling people, like, well, what brought you to Hawaii? And I'm like, actually, I came here to get sober. I started saying that. Yeah. And I didn't realize, but what I was doing is I was manifesting that. And with saying that to every person I met, it strengthened that resolve. And then it slowly became that. It was funny that by the time my 1 year sobriety date was coming up, I actually had a complete panic meltdown. It was just me and Nico. Thank God nobody else got to see it. But I like completely lost my crap. That hyperventilating panic attack, because I was afraid that I was maybe about to, because that was my thing, is I was only going to go 1 year and then reassess if I would drink again. And I was just like, I've come so far. My life is so much different. Like, I don't know if I could handle bringing booze back into my life sometimes, occasionally drinking. You know, I wasn't sure even what that meant. Yeah. I was such a mess. I was taking a shower, and he was, like, dumping cold water on me. I couldn't breathe. He was, like, holding me, spoon-feeding me ice cream as I'm, like, sobbing. And, yeah, he's a good friend.
Oh, he's a good guy.
But he pretty much helped me in that moment decide, he's like, you don't have to start drinking again. Just because your 1 year is up, like, you can keep...
Yeah,
like, it can be this way. And I've just kind of decided in that moment, I was like, you know, I can decide if I want to drink a different date, you know, just push it back. And at this point, I'm gonna just keep not, because my life is so much better now. Without it, I used to get the worst hangovers. Just wake up, hug in the toilet all day.
Yeah, I never got really bad hangovers, and I think the reason why I never became an alcoholic is because I never blacked out. Didn't matter if I had 3 beers or 6 beers, and nothing to, or whatever. Like, I always knew what I did from the night before, and I think that kept me from...
Well, you have to have more than 6 beers to black out.
Some people, man, you should see my ex after 3 beers.
She tiny?
She blacks out. No, but she is petite.
Yeah.
She's like my height. She's maybe like 140, 150.
Yeah, if you're tiny, like, if you don't weigh, that, like, is a body thing.
Mm-hmm.
I can handle my booze.
Oh,
but
no. Yeah, me too.
I have blacked out, but I can't tell you how many drinks I had to get to that point. So, a lot.
No, there's definitely times where I've definitely been alcohol poisoning, you know what I mean? Like, I'm throwing up and shit, so I know, like, I should have blacked out.
That's not how it works always.
Maybe.
Actually. Well, coming from an...
Well, no, yeah, definitely.
Sometimes you...
Well, I know it was always the case with my mom, too.
Yeah.
My mom never blacked out, and she definitely... I mean, my dad's friends would have fun doing drinks for her, and she would...
Never black out.
Never black out, no matter how many times.
Yeah. I think I've only... And I was a very heavy drinker, like... only ever blacked out, I think, twice.
It all depends.
But
people are different.
I don't know. I think both those times were empty stomachs situations and just a ton of booze.
Yeah.
Stupid.
I always judged it based on, like, I like the people I would be drinking with the night prior or whatever, like I would be drinking as much as them and they would black out.
Yeah,
so then I'd be
you
like,
can't judge it on that because, everybody handles it totally different.
Yeah.
It's weird that way, too, body composition.
Because DeAndre's definitely a fucking blacked out.
I bet he is, he's tiny.
Oh my god.
Yeah, when you're thin, you tend to do that. I had an ex-girlfriend, man, she would black out all the time.
I dated someone who was 4'10". You give her like a drink and a half.
She was tiny like that and skinny and would just like turn into a total bitch. And like she would get so wasted and she would like just I don't even know, a completely different person. It was always a bummer.
It was one time the tiny girl. I can't remember if we were drinking or if we were high or something. We were like wrestling around in bed and this and that. I'm like, oh, she likes Lion King. I'm gonna do something cute. So I get on top of her and pin her, and I go Pinja. Like in The Lion King. Thinking like, oh, it'd be cute.
Oh, it'd be cute.
She chucks me off of her. And then gets on all fours and starts to growl like a lion at me. And I'm literally hands up in the corner of the bed like, I'm not touching this with a 10-foot pole. I don't know what the fuck's going on.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, man.
You want to play lion?
I tried to talk to her and she wouldn't respond. And I'm just like, okay, I don't know what's going on now. This is getting kind of borderline like... kind of crazy.
She's getting really into character.
I guess so, man. Yeah. Some people like role play.
Yeah, so you started the game. You started the role playing.
I guess I can't get mad at starting the game. Right?
That's funny.
Oh my god, that is funny. Well, Nikki, we got about 2 minutes left on the pod. I know, right? Flies by. It's so gnarly. Every single podcast I do, I look. And it starts, and I'm like, oh, cool, we're at 10 minutes, and I look again, and then it's 45, and the next time I'm doing the wrap-up.
That's cool.
So, but Nikki, it was a pleasure having you on the podcast. We'll definitely have you on again, maybe include some wild tales from back in the days.
Oh, God, who knows?
Or maybe we'll do a dual podcast with you and Nico now that I have one of each of you.
Oh, that'd be cool.
Because that's what I just wanted to do before I brought both of you on. I wanted to kind of have my own little solo time with you guys.
We can tell you about some of our crazy stories.
Oh, crazy stories of lots of things.
Yeah,
I'd love to hear about it. So.
Alright, well thank you. I really appreciate having this time with you. It's been nice.
It's very rare where you can get an hour alone with someone without any distractions or interruptions.
No phone.
It's so wonderful. So, well, everyone, this has been Ocean of Same Ocean, Different Beach. This has been an episode of Same Ocean, Different Beach, and we will catch you all next week.